We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. Man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time.
Chris Lado. Welcome to Lado Files. Search for extraterrestrial intelligence. That's SETI. So growing up, I knew about people, I had friends that actually were using their computer to search for extraterrestrial intelligence, using their computers to help. It's been 4 decades now though, and they've had basically 0 results. So what's going on with SETI, the SETI Institute? This video cover basically just a very interesting article I found from 2011 and go through really why possibly we haven't found any signals of extraterrestrials. Let's get to the video. The SETI Institute is a nonprofit research organization located in the Silicon Valley close to the NASA Ames Research Center. Our mission is to lead humanity's quest to understand the origins and prevalence of life and intelligence in the universe and share that knowledge with the world. It's awesome. I didn't know this. The Institute began small with just one project, NASA's SETI program, and 2 employees, just 2. Founder Tom Pearson, former grants administrator at San Francisco State University, and astronomer Jill Tarter. Over the years, other research disciplines have been added to the Institute's portfolio, all unified by their relevance to the search for and understanding of life beyond Earth. Today, the Institute has approximately 100 scientists, as well as specialists in administration, education, and outreach. I've been very excited about SETI, but it has given us no real results, okay? Which is a data point, okay? So no electromagnetic radio waves from space, from any other ETs out there is quite a data point considering all the numbers. So let's go through why I think SETI maybe hasn't seen anything, what that could tell us, and what are some other options that we have to actually find extraterrestrials. Please smash that like button if you do like this content, subscribe for future notifications of my videos, and join Patreon at patreon.com/Chris Lado. Let's get to the video. Okay, this is a very enlightening article right here. The Dysonian approach to SETI, a fruitful middle ground, ? This is from May 2011, so 11 years ago, and I would say not that much has actually changed. So let's look into it, okay? I've highlighted the interesting points. Again, we'll go through this article. It's very enlightening. I learned a ton of stuff from this. Let's check it out. Dysonian approach to SETI, a fruitful middle ground, ? Done by these guys back in 2011. We critically assess the prevailing currents in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, embodied in the notion of radio searches for intentional artificial signals as envisioned by pioneers such as Frank Drake from the Drake equation, Philip Morrison, Michael Papagiannis, and others. In particular, we emphasized the necessity of integrating SETI into a wider astrobiological and future studies context. Number 2, the relevance of and lessons to be learnt from the anti-SETI arguments, in particular Fermi's paradox. And 3, a need for complementary approach, which we dub the Dysonian search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So we'll go through what is Orthodox SETI and what is Dysonian SETI, what they offer. Okay, so first, a number of revealing discoveries have been made over the last decade or so. This is in 2000. Of these, the most important has certainly been the discovery of large numbers of extrasolar planets. So what we found is there's billions and billions of stars in just our galaxy, and we've actually confirmed, right, in the last 20 years, this is actually after 2000, that most of those stars have planets. So they have extrasolar planets. This means there's even billions upon billions of planets out there, and yet we still haven't received any radio signals. All these findings strongly indicate that we are experiencing a revolution in astrobiology. That said, it has not provoked a marked increase in interest and activities in the SETI domain. So these authors argue that There's huge revelations, huge technological revolution in astrobiology, but SETI is not taking advantage of it. Beginning with the pioneer work of Frank Drake, Carl Sagan, Philip Morrison, Michael Papagiannis, Iosif Shklovsky, Bernard Oliver, and others, okay, Orthodox SETI has emerged. So back from the 60s and 70s, Orthodox SETI. And this is what they describe Orthodox SETI as. In a simplified form, it can be summarized as follows. Orthodox SETI. Life is common in the universe. Emergence of intelligence and technology is, if not necessary, at least a typical outcome of biological evolution throughout the Milky Way. A sizable fraction of technologically advanced species seek to communicate with other intelligent creatures. It makes sense to listen for intentional radio or optical messages from the depths of space and to transmit messages in return. It makes no sense to travel across interstellar distances or to expect such interstellar visitors. The best that we can hope for is a slow and benign exchange of messages, the greatest beneficiaries in such exchanges being the newest newcomers to the galactic hub, including us humans. So very interesting here. First, there's a couple notes, okay? A typical outcome of biological evolution throughout the Milky Way. Okay, just in that statement right there, they're assuming that it's not going to be non-biological, right? So this basically rules out any sort of AI evolution or post-biological is what they call in here. Second is they say just the Milky Way, okay, which you realize is just our galaxy. SETI hasn't really been searching for anything outside of our galaxy. Extragalactic, right, because it's too far away. We'll talk about that in a second. A sizable fraction of technologically advanced species seek to communicate with other intelligent creatures. So the other assumption is that other alien civilizations want to actually communicate. Okay, so that's one thing. So based on this, it makes sense to listen for intentional radio or optical messages, so or optical that was added, of space and to transmit messages in return. They're saying that it makes sense to reply back to messages from space. This may not be such a great idea, actually. They also think, according to Orthodox SETI, it makes no sense to travel across interstellar distances or to expect such interstellar visitors. This is probably the biggest claim I have issue with, right, is that it makes no sense to travel across interstellar distances. So the assumption is we cannot physically get there. Like the physics will not allow us to actually warp space or go through wormholes or do any of that Stargate stuff. Okay, it's completely ruled out. All we're looking for is radio signals. The best that we can hope for is the slow and benign exchange of messages. So that's all we can hope for is this slow back and forth. Hey, we're going to send messages in a bottle, essentially. The greatest beneficiaries in such exchanges being the newest newcomers to the galactic hub, including us humans. Okay, so that's the general Orthodox SETI, that the viewpoint that started back in the 60s and 70s when SETI was actually first implemented. All right, so let's look at that. Is it going to work? Times are changing. In addition to astrobiological revolution itself, some of the important recent developments of relevance to the SETI endeavor are confirmation of rapid origin of life on Earth. Okay, so this is interesting, is we found that right away, as soon as there was conditions for life to happen on Earth, boom, there was life. Okay, so this means it's even more possible. Discovery and exploration of extremophiles. So this is those amazing little creatures, tardigrades, for instance, that can survive, or you have creatures that can live at the bottom of the ocean, right, without oxygen. They can actually live in these thermal vents. So life actually we found is more prevalent on Earth, at least. Improved understanding of technological growth and technological capacities of future humanity and, by analogy, possible extraterrestrial technological societies. Okay, so basically we just have future growth, right? We're seeing AI come online. We're saying, could it be sentient? So we're seeing basically rapid technological advancements. Irresponsive of the Orthodox SETI to these new developments prompts us to reconsider its basic tenets and to propose a new view of the entire endeavor. So this is in 2011, okay? These authors are arguing that SETI continues to work with the same set of philosophical, methodological, and technological assumptions that were established during the time of its pioneers in the 1960s and 1970s. So they're saying they still haven't adapted. We haven't learned anything in 50 years from these methods. Well, we've learned that we're not receiving any signals. By contrast, conceptions of astrophysics, planetary sciences, evolutionary biology, and especially computer science and neuroscience, arguably the four key scientific pillars of SETI, have changed revolutionary, to put it mildly, since that epoch. So what do they actually propose? Okay, so let's see. The failure of the Orthodox SETI is thus twofold. So they say there's two failures why this didn't work. It has failed to detect its targets in spite of the widespread early optimism. So at the beginning there was huge optimism, right? They're like, we've got to be joining this community. There's millions of galaxies, billions. There's billions of galaxies, there's billions of stars. billions of planets, okay? But it didn't work. Number 2, it has failed on epistemological and interdisciplinary levels, as it has sought to be understood seriously enough to be fully integrated into the general astrobiological field and to gain adequate wider scientific, social, financial, and political recognition. The latter failure is, unfortunately, amply demonstrated by constant funding problems, budget cuts, and controversies. So basically they're saying is, even worse, it's failed to actually introduce itself into our wider scientific, social, financial, and political recognition. So SETI has been kind of a side project that hasn't really worked and it's failed to really get any traction in our societies. So they argue here, there is a reasonable way to make SETI studies significantly more respectable and scientific in any appropriate sense of the word. Here, we shall make the case for 4 strategies that characterize a supplemental approach, which has been dubbed Dysonian SETI after Freeman Dyson. So number 1, what do they say could help? First, we need to search for technological products, artifacts, and signatures of advanced technological civilizations. So I think this is why it's called Dysonian, really, is the Dyson sphere. Okay, so Freeman Dyson argued that they will most likely build some sort of artifact that will capture all the energy for the sun, right? That is the idea of a Dyson sphere. Okay, so look for those artifacts. Number 2, the study of post-biological and artificially super intelligent evolutionary trajectories, as well as other relevant fields of future studies. This is probably the biggest thing for me, okay, even above artifacts, is what kind of life can we expect to come up against, right? And so far we've seen they're not using radio waves, right? Or at least the radio waves aren't hitting our planet. So is there something else going on? Post-biological, artificially super intelligent trajectories. So we're looking at non-biological entities, okay? Remember, Orthodox SETI was all biological. That's all we're looking for, right? They're like us, humans on another planet, dialing in radio waves, okay? But what if they're not, right? What if they's advanced using AI, Neuman probes, all these other things? Third is the expansion of admissible SETI target spectrum. So this really, another big thing is widening our scope, okay? So widening the scope outside of just the radio waves and now lasers. Number 4, the achievement of tighter interdisciplinary contact with related astrobiological subfields. So this is basically just integrating, okay? So basically get out of the game of just radio detection. That's it, telescope radio detection, kind of it. So you're looking at computer science, artificial life, evolutionary biologosophy of mind. I don't even know what that is, okay? But basically widening the scope. Those are the 4 things that these authors said he should do. This is where we're looking for the actual artifacts, okay? Here they say, it is important to emphasize that the Dysonian approach to SETI is not limited to a search for the eponymous shells and activities accompanying their construction. That's the Dyson sphere, right? The actual idea is a Dyson sphere will go around a star and capture all of the energy leaving that star, okay? In my own personal view, it's not required. It's important to emphasize here that the Dysonian approach to SETI is not limited to a search for the eponymous shells and activities accompanying their construction, a Dyson sphere, but to a general class of artifacts, manifestations, and traces of the existence of advanced technological civilizations. Some other macro-engineering feats belonging to this potentially detectable category include, okay, so supramundane planets, shell worlds, Jacob's ladders, and similar circumplanetary constructions. That is like a Dyson sphere, so we're talking about large solar system-wide artifacts, large constructions. That's what we're looking for. Large-scale antimatter burning vehicles or industrial plants, large-scale processing of radionuclides, artificial planetary rings, large artificial objects in transiting orbits, detectable through extrasolar planet searches, or smaller objects being anomalously accelerated via systems such as mass drivers or space elevators. So looking for these large artifacts. An actual Dyson sphere would be a sphere that completely surrounds a star and captures all of the energy from that star. Personally, I don't think these artifacts are necessarily even required, right? As you get more and more advanced, right? As an actual civilization gets more technologically advanced, we actually remove systems. If you think about it, as our cell phones are working, right? We don't need cabling, okay? We don't need those wires anymore. We can just go wireless. Okay, so we're using an invisible technology that we can't see. There's less wires out in the air, there's less stuff to actually see, but now we can detect those electronic waves, okay? But that's assuming that electronic waves would be available millions of years. If you look at our actual society, we've only been using EMF for the last 200 years, and the question is, are we still going to use EMF in the future? What if we find out EMF is, very inefficient? There's probably a better way to actually transmit information that we haven't found about, right? We're just assuming that radio waves and EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, is the best way to transfer information, because that's what we use right now. Because if it's just radio, okay, even proponents of the SETI orthodoxy admit that the window of opportunity for radio or optical laser communication is quite short. Okay, so this means for the billions of years life has been on Earth, we've used radio waves for about 200 years of that, which is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. Under the optimistic scenario, there may be as many as 10 to the 6th, that's 1 million, I believe, technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy. However, these societies are at various stages of development. The probability that 2 extraterrestrial societies are at the same stage of evolution, to say within 1 million years, is very small. So this is that small window of opportunity. Okay, so let's say even if you had 1 million technologically advanced civilizations in the galaxy, the chance of them even being within 1 million years is extremely small. Okay, within 1 million years of development. Think of that, 1 million years of development. Thus, it's important to realize that what is often vaguely referred to as anti-SETI arguments are mainly arguments against Orthodox SETI. However, the same window of opportunity is increased by many orders of magnitude or even vanishes entirely when we search for macro engineering artifacts instead of intentional messages. Moreover, given that a technological civilization's tenure in a biological state is a potentially short-lived one, and given the strong conjecture that post-biological existence is virtually immortal, the sheer number of post-biological civilizations awaiting detection relative to biological civilizations is thus grossly disproportionate. Okay, this is an amazing paragraph here, okay? So basically explaining is the window of opportunity, if you're just considering these transmission of light waves, okay, using EMF, radio waves essentially is the main game, you have to be there right there to hear it, okay? But these artifacts of a previous society, okay, if we can actually find one of those, they will be there for much longer. They're going to greatly widen that window of opportunity. Next thing is, if you can consider that a non-biological, they talk here, post-biological existence, okay, so this is an AI, basically we go to AI. Imagine humans in the future, we merge with cybernetics, okay, we get Neuralink, now we are combining with machines, okay, so it's a post-biological evolution. If you could imagine 1 million years, imagine 1 million years into the future, okay, what are humans going to look like if we're even around? Probably post-biological, and here they say virtually immortal. The sheer number of post-biological civilizations awaiting detection relative to biological civilizations is thus grossly disproportionate. So they say basically the argument is if you get to that post-biological level, you're probably going to be around forever, or they say virtually immortal. This means that there's going to be more of those civilizations out there than there is of the biological civilizations. Yeah, it's not enough to somehow remove all advanced technological civilizations from our past light cone. Okay, so everything we can see. We also need to erase their more durable and potentially detectable achievements in order to reproduce the empirical great science. On Earth, the very existence of the fascinating discipline of archaeology tells us that cultures produce material records significantly more durable than themselves. So basically look for the records of these biological civilizations through their artifacts. The Dysonian approach does not prejudice against properties and characteristics of target societies in the way the Orthodox view does. Contemporary future studies is increasingly pointing to humanity's pending transition from biological to post-biological existence, and its merger with artificial superintelligence. This shift is necessarily accompanied by a paradigmatic evolutionary shift in which the species largely retires Darwinian processes in favor of self-directed change and adaptation. The ongoing development of the medical sciences, including breakthroughs in cybernetics, genetics, pending breakthroughs in anti-aging, whole brain emulation, medical nanotechnology, are strong indicators that humanity is indeed transitioning to a post-biological condition. It's completely reasonable to surmise that such an existential shift is a common transitional stage for advanced technological civilizations, terrestrial or otherwise. So this is that post-biological evolution. Pretty crazy. Finally, beyond the mainstream SETI targets. In almost 4 decades of SETI projects, there have been no results in spite of the prevailing contact optimism of 60s and 70s, motivated largely by uncritical acceptance of the Drake equation. Today, even fervent contact optimists have abandoned fanciful numbers and settled on a view that advanced extraterrestrial societies are much rarer than previously thought. One of the important factors in this downsizing of SETI expectations has been demonstrations by contact pessimists, especially Michael Hart and Frank Tipler, that the colonization, or at least visit, of all stellar systems in the Milky Way by means of a self-reproducing von Neumann probes is feasible within a minuscule fraction of the galactic age. So what this means is Michael Hart and Frank Tipler apparently showed that if you have Neumann probes, von Neumann probes, if you have AI that can actually self-replicate Okay, even using current understanding of speeds, light travel, you don't even need wormholes. You can actually completely fill up the whole galaxy, right? You can cover the whole galaxy with your AI probes in just a small few million years, okay? Not even that long. A minuscule fraction of the galactic age. This is also quite interesting. According to recent important studies by Lineweaver and collaborators, Earth-like planets around other stars in the galactic habitable zone are on average, okay, this is interesting, on average, 1.8 plus or minus 0.9 billion years older than our planet. These calculations are based on chemical enrichment as the base precondition for the existence of terrestrial planets. So applying the Copernican assumption naively, we would expect that correspondingly complex life forms on those others to be on the average 1.8 billion years older. Intelligent societies, therefore, should also be older than ours by the same amount. So basically what they're saying, the authors are saying here, is based on a recent study, our planet is actually quite young compared to the galactic habitable zone. So the planets around us, right, in our galaxy, are actually 1.8 billion years older than ours. So on average, intelligent species should be 1.8 billion years older than us. Billion. According to this, I agree, it seems preposterous even to contemplate any possibility of communication between us and a billion-year-older super civilizations. Remember that 1 billion year ago, 1 giga-year ago, the appearance of even the simplest animals on Earth lay in the distant future. Amazing. In addition, the Dysonian approach allows us to reassess extragalactic SETI in the sense precluded by the Orthodox paradigm. Extragalactic SETI has not been considered very seriously so far, and really, they say it here, the reason is perhaps the same old comforting prejudice that we should expect specific signals, most conveniently radio. So specifically radio signals. So interesting graph here, basically lays out the difference between Orthodox SETI and Dysonian SETI, okay? Main object of search, Orthodox SETI, intentional messages. Dysonian SETI, looking for artifacts, traces, signatures. So the working model, basically Orthodox SETI thinks we'll have biological post-industrial analog existence. So humans out there just flying around in flying cars, essentially. Dysonian SETI says it's gonna be post-biological, a digital existence, so different. Basically, we can kind of assess it based on what we're seeing now, but it's going to be different post-biological. The window of opportunity very narrow with the Orthodox SETI, okay? Civilizations come up and go out. Dysonian SETI, once it goes post-biological, they're probably around, okay? So we can still be looking at it. Quantitative theoretical potential unexplored. I think this is because we're looking at extragalactic. Prejudicates ETI behavior. So in this Orthodox SETI, you're assuming that they want to contact us, that they want to actually communicate, okay? With this, Dysonian is, no, okay, we're not assuming that. Two-way communication, no. We're just looking one way, okay? I think probably this is smarter. Probably just go passive for now. Interstellar travel, irrelevant. Basically, Orthodox SETI says it's too far away. We can't do it. Dysonian SETI says possible, for sure. It's definitely on the list, okay? Actually required for extragalactic. Operational risks, they say yes, because if we're sending out signals, actively sending out signals, it could be quite dangerous if we don't know the actual environment out there. Probably the most interesting thing for me out of this whole paper, okay? Like we just mentioned a few times, radio is the primary working frequency of Orthodox SETI, but infrared is Dysonian. Infrared is Dysonian, and this is James Webb Telescope, man. James Webb Telescope just went online, started getting us pictures of galaxies. That is in the infrared spectrum. Natural mode of search, active. Okay, so you're actually sending out information and listening. You're actively, I like passive personally, okay? Just as a military person, passive is the way to go. Data resolution is high, okay? You'll have high data resolution. I don't know why this is low, okay? Maybe how they're looking. And then practical extragalactic SETI, like I mentioned, no, okay, you're not looking outside of the Milky Way based on the ranges. So James Webb, very exciting, okay? The authors say here, has already been the case in the preceding decades, we will undoubtedly encounter strange and mysterious phenomena. We are, okay, daily basis. We will uncover unique objects and signals that will surely defy explanation. And in these cases, we must conclude one of three things. Okay, this is from the authors. That our data is somehow flawed, an unlikely and often correctable circumstance. 2, that there are shortcomings in our physical understanding. Historically predominant case. Okay, usually it's us being wrong. Or 3, that we have uncovered phenomenon that was created by an artificial source. To reject any of these possibilities would be unscientific and disingenuous. Limiting ourselves to semi-random searches for the cosmos for antiquated technological signals is an affront to the rigorousness that the SETI endeavor demands. As our technologies change, so too does our conception of the future and our place in it. Consequently, our search for advanced life must mirror these conceptions. It is incumbent upon us to keep the prospect wide open. Yeah, I concur. Basically, we need to keep our minds open. We need to keep our science unbiased as best as we can and use new technological capabilities. So I was very excited for SETI. I'm still very excited for SETI. I hope that, man, how awesome it would be if they could detect something extraterrestrial. That would be amazing. But I think they need to change their plan. They need to change their game plan going out the door. So thanks for being here, guys. Smash that like button if you did like this video. Subscribe, click that bell to get notifications of my future content, and then go to patreon.com/Chris Lado to support the channel on Patreon and get backstage access. We're doing our own initiative called UAP Society to try and find out if we can get our own data, okay, and publish it open source, and we're willing to collaborate with anyone out there who is also for that mission. Thanks for being here. Have a great week. Peace.